Hello everyone, how's it going? My name's Ben. Welcome back aboard the Bonny Rackham. We are now back with Season 2, ready to get started on this one. Yeah, I love Season 2. I think it might be my favourite. I don't know necessarily if it's the best. It's up there. I think it's still a 10 out of 10. But yeah, I love this one. I love a lot of the stuff going on in this one. So, without further ado, let's just get started. Let's get a title sorted.
First item.
Okay, yeah, so for the first season, I tried to be very good. I tried to be very kind of sensible, and I tried to be a little bit smart with it, and I will continue. But this one, my brain was like, no, we can't go too smart with this one. We have to call it the fucking warship. Because, yeah, obviously, real life, you're never getting away with a title like that. So let's get into the fucking warship. A lot of F-bombs in this one.
Next item.
Okay, so this one was written by Jonathan E. Steinberg and Robert Levine again, back to back for them. And it is directed by Steve Boyum, who is another new name in the director's chair this episode. So we begin Season 2 as we began Season 1, with a cold open and an unfamiliar captain and crew and a boarding. Things are a lot calmer this time though. No resistance, no explosions, and no war chants. This captain, he wants a peaceful surrender. His quartermaster though, is not so sure. The captain's going with the, if we act like civilised men, then they will kind of approach. It's eerie and it's quiet as Ned Lowe's crew start climbing aboard. Really great sound effects and Foley on this one. Lots of creaking ropes, lots of hooks in the ship, and, you know, sound of them climbing and all that sort of thing, and boots on wood. The captain reassures his quartermaster, these stories you've heard, tools of the trade applied by the pirates themselves. He says they're men, not monsters. That word again. If we behave rationally and civilly, so will they. Yeah, about that. About that. And so we are introduced to a new player, Ned Lowe. He's got a mean look to him. You can tell he's going to be trouble straight away as he walks across the plank to board. He just looks cold, he looks ruthless. There's something different in this guy's vibe. The captain is polite though when he hands over the manifests, and Lowe's crew start collecting while the captain's crew are kind of herded on the lower deck. I think that this captain thinks it's a tea party or something. He's being very civil, chatting away. I can understand his reasoning though. The idea already coming up about the myth and stories about pirates being spread before people have actually come face to face with one. Of course, that will come up again in a flashback scene a little bit later. It's just unfortunate that in Ned Lowe's case, the monster rumours just very much happen to be very true. So, this captain asks him if he's from Nassau, and Ned Lowe says he's a recent arrival. This captain's just talking about rumours and things, and word of Eleanor in charge of it all has certainly got around. The captain refers to Eleanor as a teenager. Didn't realise she was supposed to be quite that young. I always kind of put her around 23 to 25. But it could just be that he's heard rumours and, you know, she isn't actually as young as all that. So Lowe's quartermaster, Mr. Meeks, hands him the manifest and points out a name, Lord Ash. And then Ned just very coldly orders the execution of the captain's entire crew. They are surrounded by guns and they're killed in cold blood despite the captain's protests. Ned thanks the captain for his orderly surrender, says normally he would have returned the courtesy and just relieved him of his cargo and left, but this ship is about to yield a prize of a far greater value than his wildest expectation, for which he would rather leave no witnesses to the taking. Ned Lowe then shoots the captain, despite his pleas, in cold blood again. And yeah, was Ned talking honestly or not honestly there? If this was just a raid for a few goods, would he have left? Maybe at this point you believe so, but after his final scene of the episode, I lean heavier towards, yeah, probably not. I think that was all probably crap. I don't think that none of that crew were ever leaving alive. Nevertheless, we end the scene with a couple of the crew carrying out, well, it looked like Snow White to me when I first saw it. She's just all in white, and yeah, she looks like Snow White from Once Upon a Time. A young woman is asleep, unconscious, perhaps. And yeah, this is a puzzle piece you're left with as a first-time viewer. But of course, we all know that that is Abigail Ash. And yeah, we'll obviously get far more into her when the time comes. And we just get a great retreating bird's eye shot of the carnage Ned Lowe and his crew have caused. And we see Lowe's ship, which we learn later is called the Fancy, sail off, leaving the old ship, the boarded ship, in flames. And yeah, we just go straight into those fantastic credits. Yeah, what a way to meet Ned Lowe. What a way to meet him. I didn't think much of him first time round, and while I don't like him, I think he's a great villain and, you know, an interesting character. And he is an out-and-out villain. Everyone we've met so far, I think for the very most part, has a lot of grey area. But Ned Lowe, I think it's probably pretty much agreed, is pretty firmly all in the black. Just as I said last episode, we pick up right where we left off last episode with the Walrus crew stranded on a remote island with the Urca treasure scattered all over the beach. Except something is different. Yes, we have a new actor playing Dufresne, as Yanis Esselin was no longer sadly well enough to continue. Dufresne, I hate Dufresne from here on out. Not this guy though. Roland Reed, he's decent. It's just Dufresne, I think, is just pretty unlikable from here on out. Of course, both Flint and Silver are facing charges from what went down last episode. Dufresne says the only reason their sentences have not been carried out is because he's been delaying the hope in hopes that Flint might find a way to be able to get the gold on the beach. Basically saying, yeah, we're still very mad at you, but also we're a little bit useless, so please help us out. And Flint asks, why would he do that? What's the point? Dufresne says that if he does, he'll see that their sentences are commuted. He says the men feel they're entitled to leave here with something to show. And Flint interrupts. This is where Flint just levels up for me as a character. He says, fuck those men, and we just see Silver kind of roll his eyes like, oh god, here we go. Yeah, Flint just continues, fuck them for their short-sightedness, fuck them for their ingratitude, and fuck them for siding with a cowardly, snivelling shit of a mutineer. Flint really said, fuck the swear jar today. He basically explains it's not as easy as just simply stealing the gold. They're very outnumbered, their men will be looking for them, getting more men, and a search party is very likely to find them in, you know, a matter of hours, days, very soon. And they'll kill every last member of him and his crew. And they'll deserve it, Flint says. None more so than you, he growls at Dufresne. Flint is defiant, yeah, and he's not going down quietly. Frustrated, Dufresne just orders the nooses and tells them to bring them down. Silver looks worried, but Flint looks pensive, kind of out to sea a moment, and stares at a ship. You can see the idea kind of come into his head. He closes his eyes. It's almost like he's annoyed at himself. And maybe in a way he was almost ready for that noose. He said his piece and he's assumed there's probably no way out of this. Also maybe the fact that he doesn't want to be working with a bunch of mutinists, as he's kind of just stated, but knows for him to survive that he kind of has to. But he's had an idea and he tells Dufresne to wait. Yeah, so they're all on the beach now, Flint, Silver, Dufresne, and what's remaining of the crew. And yeah, Flint is laying out the facts to them all. He's reiterating they have no chance of taking the men on. They just don't have the numbers. Yeah, and the men, obviously, they don't want to hear it at first. Yeah, they obviously all know about Gates now and Flint's intentions to keep some of the money and whatever else was on Gates' kind of manifest he wrote down. After a bit of bickering, Flint continues. If it wasn't for the men and the guns, there's a fucking warship watching every last inch of the bay. And it is the same warship that they fought last episode. I wasn't completely sure last episode, but yeah, it is the same warship. Yeah, he big ups the fucking warship a bit. Says it's taken half their number and would prevent any approach to the beach via the sea. He restates there is simply no way of stealing that gold. There's a pause, and he says, but there might be something else we can steal. The fucking warship. Classic line, the gonads of this guy. Just the sheer nerve of him. But no one's really kind of buying it yet, though. As yeah, it's a pretty crazy idea. He says every one of their men's pretty much on the beach, meaning she's probably not manned as heavily as she normally would be. Suggests that two men approach quietly, evade the sentries, and eliminate the watch on the main mast. He's trying to do his big finish, and it's almost like the Groot knows what's coming. Flint tries to say, once it is in your possession, and the Groot, you know, he cuts him off, and Flint just shouts, once it is in your possession, you will be invincible. And yeah, this time no one says anything, but they're listening a little bit again now, at least some of them are. As the risk is almost entirely on the first two men that go out, Flint volunteers himself in exchange for their pardon, and asks for another. When Silver puts up his hand kind of quickly behind him, Flint's pissed off. I think he might prefer Joji or Joshua, or someone like that. We'll see in a minute that John thinks it was all a bit of a bit and that, Flint always was intending to escape. Dufresne puts it to the vote. It looks like no one's going to agree for a moment, but then everyone starts saying aye, and we get a great transition to the next scene. So we have our first flashback. Finally, we are upon the Flint, Thomas and Miranda backstory. We see it's London 1705, 10 years previous. We finally meet Thomas Hamilton, and we see a very smart looking Flint, who we will soon learn back then went by his name James McGraw, and he was a lieutenant in the Navy. They introduce themselves and we see them walking through Parliament, I'm going to assume. I won't lie and say a lot of the Parliament and politics stuff goes over my head a bit. It's not my strength, it's not like my interest. Yeah, it's not my strength in modern times, let alone kind of 3 centuries ago. So there's a chance I might miss little tidbits on that kind of front during these flashbacks and outside of the dynamic between the 3 of them. So I might not have much more to add to the discussion on the politics front, other than, they're kind of dynamic, but I'll do my best. So again, I think they're walking kind of through Parliament, I'm guessing. See, no clue. They're discussing the uprising in piracy and talking about Henry Avery, who, like Thomas says, was one of the big first names known to have started piracy. Now, piracy, I can add something to the discussion. Going by the history books, the reality seems to be that Henry Avery had one really good kind of famous raid once, but it all went to pot a little bit for him after it. He divvied about a bit, between like America and England and Ireland. He invested his prize with merchants kind of along the way, who ultimately swindled him out of his money. And as rumour was circulating of his name and a mantle kind of being built, the reality is he was like starving and eventually died of sickness. He'd been so poor, he'd been reduced to like begging on the streets kind of before he died. But this all comes from the book called A General History of the Pirates, which was generally believed to have been written by the real Woodes Rogers, using a kind of alias. So who knows? That's the thing with history when it's that old, isn't it? And there's no... You kind of have to believe what you read, which is the whole point. Anyway, sorry, a little history detour. Back to our story. We learn Thomas Hamilton's father is an earl. I think that came up in season 1, that little info. And he's trying to pacify Nassau, to which he holds a title at this point in time. And Thomas seems a bit disappointed after asking for the Admiral's assistance that they've sent Flint, who I'm just going to call McGraw now in flashbacks, just so it's not quite so confusing. I think Thomas takes McGraw being taken as confirmation of his mission, maybe not being taken too seriously. And we learn McGraw has a reputation. He's the son of a carpenter. He's got no schooling, but he's known to be very literate and, very well read, which we've seen. Thomas calls him a rising star with a bright future in the Admiralty. And McGraw is a bit offended by Thomas's offence in him being sent. But Thomas is polite, and we see earlier on, we see he's very passionate about his cause. Says he intends to accomplish something here. He intends to save Nassau before she's lost forever. Says he can't do that with a partner who might be more concerned about advancing his career than about realising this goal. McGraw kind of looks in his eyes a moment, and how that didn't make my bidar ping a little bit on the first time around, I'm not too sure, but you're not expecting it. You're not expecting it at all, so... But he smiles and says maybe his job is to make certain that Thomas knows exactly what he's getting into. And that gives us a nice segue into modern day Nassau. And an interesting first flashback. A lot to learn about Flint's past, in a quick scene. And a nice quick little introduction to Thomas Hamilton. And Thomas Hamilton, he came across quite likeable from the go for me. I'm intrigued by him pretty much from the offset. So as I say, it's Nassau, present day, and if the sands were shifting beneath Eleanor's feet last episode, then the sands are they're bloody turning into quicksand for her this episode. It's not going so well for her. Poor girl, she's visiting Vane at the fort. Vane is already in a meeting when she arrives, and she awkwardly has to wait at the door for the meeting to finish. Funny little moment when the watchman's like, you can go in now. She's like, I figured that. Again, I've got to give Eleanor some fair play. Pretty sure Vane knew she was waiting. This man knows what he's doing. Adele goes to get some rum, that's who he was with. Yeah, Eleanor has it out with Vane. He's missing meetings. He's not taking up Hornigold's responsibilities in the consortium. Yeah, Vane questions, is that really what she came here for? To scold him for truancy. Eleanor's mad he's not doing the job he signed up for, which, is fair. She points out that someone stole £500 worth of cargo that morning from the warehouse. Vane kind of unconvincingly says, sorry to hear that. She says, don't be sorry, do your fucking job. Yeah, I'm just going to say it. Vane's being a little bit of a dick here. He's being a little bit of a dick. He's Vane, so yeah, badass. But to me, he's still being a dick. Entertaining to watch, but really frustrating to be on Eleanor's side of. Basically, yeah, he's confirming he could care less about the captains and the consortium side of it all, which Eleanor points out was what he wanted, what he signed up for. Once again, he questions what she's doing. Yeah, he's basically saying this isn't her bag at all, not what she has the appetite for. And yeah, I know he's sort of right, but she was doing okay for a little bit. He says that's why she's frustrated with him, because she knows all this and knows he knows, and that she's so much like him. And Eleanor she snaps, Jesus H. Christ, enough. Stop telling me what it is you think I think. And yeah, points are made. Very frustrating when someone is speaking for you while you're right there. And it's even more frustrating when they're ultimately actually right. Which I think is also what is bothering her. She just says she wants to make money, secure a future here, and for him to turn up to a meeting when he's fucking told. She goes to leave, and Vane, he's waving that red cloth in front of the bull, and says she hasn't asked him the question yet, if he's going to let him in. And yeah, please pull your trousers up, Zach McGowan. Everyone attracted to men we're not okay right now, alright? But I digress. He continues, saying he's not decided if he's going to let Flint into the bay with the treasure, assuming he returns with it at all. Again, fair play to Eleanor, she's not scared of him, warns him to be very careful. At a certain point, she will remove him from here, no matter the consequences. And Vane asks how she sees such a partner in Flint, but a villain in him. Then Vane makes his proposition. Was this always his plan? Maybe. But he suggests that he takes Flint's gold once he returns, kills him, and then him and her split it. And Eleanor is a bit shocked. Maybe she had been worrying that this was his plan since he returned, but maybe it generally has shocked her. Maybe even, not wanting to admit it to herself, an option deep down that she's considering. He says she could do whatever she likes. They could do whatever they liked, which he sort of already promised her last episode, and he's already messing with the running of things a little bit. But like it or not, it's in her mind now. But she just gets a great exit line, says fuck you, and as Adele re-enters with the rum, says fuck you too. And Vane's face says yeah, he's achieved what he wanted to do in that moment. He knows he's hit a nerve right there. Okay, back to that Silver and Flint scene I briefly mentioned. The Frayne and Flint, they go over the plan. The Frayne wants to make it clear to Flint, even if they succeed, he will be expelled from the crew. So yeah, if this does go to plan, it's going to be another hurdle for Flint. But yeah, let's get over the first one first. So yeah, as I said, Silver thinks all this was just a plan and they're about to jump ship. So he's a bit taken aback when Flint calls him a shit and angry asks him, why did you volunteer? Yeah, I love their dynamic this episode. They're actually really good fun this season, this episode especially. Flint's starting to see John's usefulness, I think, but is still pretty reluctant to admit it or give him much credit until, I think we get into the later half of the season. So yeah, the penny drops for Silver and he's like, you really mean to board that ship? Jesus Christ, I'm not doing it. Says he doesn't need Nassau, he's happy to find some other place to survive. And Flint's like, yeah, you're not surviving, you're not making it out of here on your own. Yeah, watching Flint head off towards the sea, and knowing he's got no choice really, he reluctantly throws his coat and he follows Flint, who is determinedly, remember he got shot last episode in the shoulder. He's determinedly swimming one-armed towards the ship. So yeah, just more badass Flint. Okay, another quick scene back in the past now. And McGraw is showing Thomas kind of a piracy hanging. The guy's not going quietly. Thomas says, is that the lesson? Pirates are incorrigible, dedicated to mayhem. Is this subject doomed to defeat from the outset, he asks. And Flint notes the crowd, who are cheering at kind of justice being done and having a grand time as this man is hanged. James says it's them he wanted Thomas to see. Civilization needs its monsters, and yeah, that's a bar. Civilization needs its monsters because every so often Civilization is the real monster. And Thomas questions, does he think Whitehall wants piracy to succeed? And McGraw says no, doesn't think they want it, but he thinks they're aware of the cost associated with trying to fight it. He thinks that sound of the crowd travels. And then he says, in most cases, a man trying to change the world fails for one simple and unavoidable reason: everybody else. And yeah, that is another bar. What a line. A line Flint probably still thinks back to and, can relate to in the present day. And yeah, and what a way to bring us back to our present day, Flint and Silver. Flint is swimming underwater, and yeah, I have a phobia of really deep waters. Thalassophobia, I think that's what it's called. Well, where you can't see the bottom of the water, which is mad, considering I love boats and I would love to sail on a big ship one day in the ocean, but such is life. Great camera work, though, of them beneath the water and then they're above it. Really well shot. Flint says as a warning to Silver, do as I say when I say, or I'll kill you myself, before they sneak on board. Still pretty much with the use of only one arm, Flint starts to climb the rungs. As Silver catches up with him in the sleeping quarters below deck, he is quickly hushed by Flint, and we see, there is a whole room full of men sleeping in bunks. And press B to crouch, guys, it's stealth time or shit's going to hit the fan. And talking of shit, it's the best segue I've got for you, alright? Talking of shit, Jack's on the John, trying to read his paper. The anxiety this gives me. I live alone, so thankfully no longer any sort of rush for those sort of things, for privacy in that sense. But yeah, the flashback anxiety of living in a house, being one of 5 kids with 2 parents, just never being able to get 5 minutes peace for that sort of thing. Anyway, the interruption is winding Jack up as well as he mumbles, I will fucking kill you. Shut up. When he finally emerges, there are a few guys waiting for him, and the words got around like Vane said it would, and Vane's punishment is being dealt out, and we see poor Jack. He's chucked down the stairs and he's kicked about a bit, and we ask, where's Anne? Anne is sat in the brothel just scowling at Max, and Max sort of catches it as well. Anne is distracted, however, when poor Jack walks in, looking very worse for wear. We learn this isn't his first day of issue, but things are escalating pretty drastically. Jack says he only came to Nassau with his name and his wit. He overcame the slights and the ridicule, and he used the wits to build the name. Jack's name, we know it's always been important to him. Learn here he's worked hard to get his reputation and reach where he was last season. He moans, Jesus Christ, what's become of my name? Anne kind of leans in and she sort of sniffs a little bit, and he informs her they pissed on him. She asks him to tell her who did this, and Jack's very much, that's how we got into this fucking mess kind of thing. Of course, despite it all being her idea and her doing, Anne's not getting a hard time at all. No one's bothering Anne. Jack's not happy. He has a bit of a strop, and and then he bless him, he re-points out that they pissed on him, and he takes his rum and he goes upstairs. See, Anne seems like she's not sure what to say to console him. And without violence in retaliation, I don't think she has much she can offer Jack kind of in this moment. Max watches him go up, and she seems to debate a moment. And I see you, Max. I see what you're doing, approaching the cage to see if the lion's a bit calmer today. The answer's no. No, not today. Max comes over to her at the bar, says she will send someone to tend to Jack, and Anne this episode, she's just a 10-year-old boy with his first crush. Alright, so she's not pulling her pigtails or pushing her in the mud in the schoolyard, but she is dealing with it in the same sort of, way. And again, Max knows this, but instead of throwing a stone at her, she knows that Anne might slice her in half. So she has to be very careful how she plays this. Anne tells her to fuck off or something equally charming, and we'll come back to that in a scene or so. So Silver and Flint are stealth sneaking below deck with all these sleeping men, and Silver seems like he risks it all to grab a whistle above a sleeping man's bunk. I didn't understand this the first time round, I wasn't sure what was going on, but this whistle is a signal to the man on the mast. It's basically meaning in theory they can keep up the deception a little bit longer once they're on deck. It's a tense moment when the man awakes as Silver reaches for it and Flint has to kill him. He knocks a bottle as he's kind of flailing, and John manages to stop it from rolling just before it crashes into someone's open palm. Yeah, he confirms to Flint why he took it when they're away from the danger. It makes sense and Flint knows it, and Silver points out, we're both better off now than we was 2 minutes ago, yet you're angry about it because it didn't happen your way. Yep, that's Flint. That's Flint. And then Silvery says to Flint, might you consider for a fucking moment that your distrust of me is completely unwarranted? And then he goes over how he's been on his side, thus far. And yeah, he makes some good points. We know he's only really been in it for his own benefit thus far, but all this is being kind of exposition by Silver a little bit as a reminder to us, and for a test of loyalty, obviously we know he's going to face in a moment. We learn it was Silver that dragged Flint from the water. He says, I'm the only person within 100 miles of here who doesn't want to see you dead. Their conversation is cut short, however, when a crew member comes downstairs, and yeah, press B again, stealth mode activated. So yeah, said watchman is also killed by Flint, and they're above deck now, and Silver uses the whistle to swap places with the guy on the mast. Once he realises what's up though, Flint's there to pounce once more. Unfortunately though, it's not stealth mode activated so much as a hell of a lot of banging about. And when Flint looks up after killing this guy, he is surrounded. Okay, a short little scene at the warehouse between Meeks, Ned Lowe's quartermaster, and Eleanor. He's trying to sell some of the cargo they took from the ship they boarded, but the guy in the warehouse is giving him hassle because the barrels are just all covered in blood. Obviously, they're selling to well-to-do people, well-off people a lot of the time, lords and such. So Eleanor confirms it needs to be reboxed into clean barrels before she can even think about shipping it out. Says it's not on her to cover that cost. So yeah, Meeks tries to plead his case a little bit, and Eleanor learns that Ned Lowe is the captain, and she just says to inform him of how all this works, and bids him good day. Normally I'd say, yeah, nice one Eleanor, standing firm, but yeah, unfortunately she doesn't quite know what she's getting into with this one. Okay, so sticking with Eleanor, she is now at the brothel and wants a word with Jack. Yeah, poor guy, he's not looking good. Max sits on the table with them too. Eleanor questioned Jack on how a prize meant for one captain ended up being sold to another. Jack is either playing it very cool or he's got no idea of Max's involvement at this point. The latter, I think, judging by his and Anne's face in a moment. Max says she sold it to Captain Lowe. If valuable information walks in the door, why should she let it walk out? Because it bothers her? Meaning Eleanor. The subtle shade from the bridge scene last episode is not quite so subtle anymore here from Max. She's playing some risky games this episode. One's going to pay off in a bit, but I don't know about this one. Hindsight with Ned Lowe, with all that's going to come with him, might have convinced her, to shut her mouth and keep that one to herself and not bother with that one. And also, big brain fart moment, kind of bear with me. Is Max selling that ship's location to Ned Lowe the reason for, a lot of all that is to come, especially in regards to Flint and at least maybe Vane and Eleanor? If she never sold it, no Abigail ended up with Vane, no betrayal on Vane for Eleanor with Flint, no retribution for Vane with Mr. Guthrie, therefore no retribution for Eleanor, no opportunity after Lost Urca for Flint, as no daughter to bargain with Ash with, no reason to go hype mode because no dead Miranda. Yeah, no, that hurts my brain, that's too much, I could keep going, but you know what I'm saying, did Max unknowingly there kind of flick a little line of dominoes in that little kind of bit of side business she did? We'll never know, because obviously other things could have happened, but something I thought about anyway. Yeah, Eleanor warns her not to mess with her business, and while all this has been going on, Anne's just been simmering. She's been casting daggers at Max. She wants Max out of sight, out of mind at this point, and once Eleanor's gone, she just homes in on her and calls her a fucking ingrate, which I didn't know what that meant. It means ungrateful. I can understand why she'd think that, because, yeah, it appears a bit sly on the surface. Max is about rising and making money, but I think she probably should have kept Jack at least in the loop with this one. Jack tries to calm Anne down. He's like, no, that's not helpful. Anne basically accuses Max of playing a bit of a game back on the beach to enlist her help. But, no, that's not exactly what went down. Max tries to calm Anne down, says to let her explain, and Anne just spits venomously, don't you fucking talk back to me. Jack has to, grab her and drag her away from Max, and yeah, Max knows this is a big issue for her now, as when Jack has taken Anne away, she says either she's on her back or she's out on the streets, but if it's not one of them come tomorrow, she'll deal with it her way. So yeah, we'll get a bit more into that one in a bit. Okay, fantastic scene alert. We all know this one well. So yeah, Silver and Flint are tied to chairs now. They're in a small cabin with 3 of the fucking warship's kind of crewmen. The guy standing puts down a big bag of coins or jewels or whatever it is and reveals a load of torture implements. Says it's one of their lucky days, and it makes it seem like it's going to be a long process to decide who squeals and who walks away with their life and all the, all the jewels, all the gold, whatever it is. And John just makes it real easy and says, my name is John Silver, his name is James Flint, we came to steal the gold, yada yada yada, and he keeps spilling the tea. And yeah, Flint is furious and he's trying to charge him in his chair. He's like, Yeah, 100% seems like Silver's finally doing a runner. Did he always have a plan in mind, or would he have scarpered if he couldn't find a weapon or something to hit one of them over the head with? I think he was always bluffing to the men. I think he's in it now. Maybe only in it for the logical sense right now, but I think he's getting there in the loyalty and kind of respect sense. I think he's slowly getting there. So yeah, it looks like he's about to scarper, but he smacks a bottle around one of their heads and he grabs a pistol. It's 2-on-1, he's weighing up his options. Flint's advising him who to shoot, and it sort of dawns on him. So Silver says, so I actually have to fight him. And Flint angrily says, well, what the fuck did you think was going to happen? It's a scramble, but Silver comes through, and Flint manages to break free from his chair, just in time to save Silver from getting an axe to the head. It's not over though, the other men have heard and they're outside. Our boys make a barricade and we get the classic shot, one of my favourites, of them ducking behind an upturned table, pistols at the ready. Thankfully though, the walrus crew are now on board and an impossible fight becomes a fair one. Joji gets a badass shot as he climbs on board, and Joshua is a welcome sight as the first man through the barricaded door. A bit of a scrap later, and some damage to their newly acquired ship, but they're out of danger's way. Flint takes one last look back at the beach as they sail away. Great scene, it's funny, but not in a goofy way that on the page could be translated as that. It's tense as well. When first time round like Flint, you think Silver's off, but he comes through. Keeping with fights, we're back with Max, who's listening outside the door while Anne is having another argument with Jack in their bedroom. Like Max, we're only hearing small bits, but when Jack comes out the room, he says to her she has absolutely nothing to worry about, but he would recommend avoiding her for a while. So, yeah, he's talked Anne down a bit, it would seem, at least from killing Max. Max could have left it there, like he said, just stayed out the way, avoided eye contact. But again, Max might not know how to play the piracy game just yet, but she knows women, and she knows the attraction game. At this point, I believe this move is anything but a peaceful life type of move. No feelings involved for Max just yet, I don't think. I'll point out in the relevant episode when I think the feelings for Anne come for Max. But for now, all she knows and her concern is as long as her and Anne exist in the same space, this is going to be the routine from now on, until maybe Anne just goes too far one day. She timidly walks into the room and Anne looks good. Anne looks good. Boots, ginger hair. Sorry, I'm back. Anne coldly tells Max to get the fuck out, and slowly Max approaches, saying, yeah, pretty much all what I've kind of just said, really, a lot of stuff, just more seductively. She sort of says it's in all their best interests if they both find a way past this, past her anger. Anne says she won't warn her again, but it's not quite as convincing. Max says she understands her anger. She killed her own crew in her defence and suffered indignity. But she says maybe there is something else going on. Something hiding in a place not even you can see. I think she sees it, but she doesn't understand it, and that's why she's been so mad and flustered, these last couple of episodes. Max is inching closer, and she's like, perhaps we do well to, have a little bit. She doesn't say that. As soon as Max makes the contact, Annie's up with a sword to her throat, and it's looking like GG's for Max. There's a tense moment, but Max leans in for the kiss, and after backing away for a moment, Anne finally relents and kisses back and drops the sword. And I wipe my brow and say thank Lord for that. Not just in a two pretty ladies kissing kind of way, but in a, I love you, Anne, as you go, so goes my nation. But that was a lot, girl. That was a lot today, girl. So yes, we're over it we're over that part of it anyway. So yeah, obviously more to get on with them in further episodes. So now we have Eleanor meeting Ned Lowe. Yeah, she's not had the best day. A spat with Vane, the little moment with Max, and the business issue she encountered earlier, which will come back into play in a moment. They small talk a bit, but Eleanor's not really got time for it. Thinks he's just after some action. Ned Lowe name drops himself, and they discuss the business from earlier. He's upset they have been shortchanged due to the state of the containers. Eleanor sort of rolls her eyes and continues drinking as he's saying this. Says he figured if he came here to tell the truth, perhaps they might reach a more favourable outcome. He says he's not a particularly skilled captain, he's bad at navigation, no gift for politics. Snap. He says what he is good at is making the men feel good about themselves. Basically says other captains are ultimately sickened by their own actions when they use violence to terrorise and to advertise, and in order to get their men to steal and to kill. And the men, they can see right through it. They can spot the lie. Then he coldly lists some of the awful things he's done. Cut out men's tongues, burn a boy alive in front of his father's eyes. He says they know, they can see it in my eyes. There's no lie there. There's no secret remorse there. I simply don't have it in me. Eleanor is now obviously a bit shook. This is a whole new player, and he's playing a completely different game. He's not even playing a game. He hasn't got the rule book. Flint can be ruthless, Vane can be ruthless, Anne can be ruthless, but it's always to an end for a reason. Finn or not, but to a reason nevertheless. This is the man, who is the monster people are talking about when they whisper about pirates. As I've said, everyone else so far, there's a rhyme, there's a reason, there's history. This guy, no remorse. Happy to do the unthinkable for no reason at all. And he sort of ends the conversation with the threatening, so you'll be sorting out me and my men now for the latest haul, sort of thing, right? He says he's going to be here a long time and it'd be a shame to make enemies over such a small amount of money. But Eleanor, she's no shrinking violet. She tells him coolly to get out of her place. He gives a little grin and leaves, and Eleanor, she is sinking in that sand. It's all going against her now. Ned Lowe did not come here to play. Well, actually he did, but like I say, he does not care much for the rule book. Okay, so we get a final little flashback scene, but first we get just a little moment with Flint and Silver. They're on the ship while the crew are voting on what's to be done with them, and then we get the last flashback of the episode. McGraw is watching Thomas. I think he's starting to admire him at this point, if nothing else, and Miranda is about to confirm that on their first meeting. She calls from a carriage. We've not seen her in a while. Nice to see her again. Says she rather envies him. She says there's a feeling one gets when in Thomas's presence that is quite indescribable. She says, I imagine you're having it as we speak. And McGraw says the game Thomas is entering into is a brutal and unforgiving one. And Miranda questions piracy, and he answers politics. Finally, we get it revealed that Flint wasn't always Flint. His real name is James McGraw. Then Miranda just drops a bar that clearly hits home for James. Great men aren't made great by politics. They aren't made great by prudence or propriety. They are made great by one thing and one thing only, the relentless pursuit of a better world. The great men don't give up the pursuit, they don't know how, and that's what makes them invincible. Wow. Well, that's Flint, isn't it? That's Flint 100%. There's a little look between them, and McGraw has, safe to say, taken that on board. And we cut to the present time, and Flint is obviously thinking of that conversation in his head. Dufresne comes over and informs him and Silver the crew have commuted their sentence by a very narrow margin. They're to be removed from the ship once they reach Nassau without severance. Once alone, Silver tells him he was right. If their interests were adverse to each other, there's a good chance he would have crossed Flint to save himself. Flint questions, why didn't he? Silver says, because at the moment, I don't believe our interests are adverse to each other. And the music starts playing, and Silver walks closer, the tension's being built. I don't believe you did any of this for a pardon, or for a passage to Nassau, or to be able to walk away from anything. I think you intend to reclaim your captaincy, take control of this ship, and then I think you intend to return to that beach, armed to the teeth, and seize every last ounce of gold on it. And I think you're going to need my help to do it. And Flint gives him a little look, and he just grins as if to say, see, I knew it. But what a way and what a first episode to get us hyped and ready for the next episode. The level up this season is noticeable from the go. Great first episode, let's get into the afterthoughts.
Last item.
Yeah, I love season 2. I love the Flint and Silver dynamic being built, as well as us delving into the past and all that, you know, that's slowly built up. And of course, I love the Janix dynamic, which, yeah, that's what the ladies from Fathom Deep named and Jack and Max's little ship, Janix. You know, it's like a combination of all them names. Yeah, and it kind of stuck with me. So I might say it every so often, so you know what I mean when I say it. It's just shorter than saying Jack, Anne and Max. Yeah, and the pieces, they move so well this first episode. We are really picking up where we left off in most cases. But you can sense the rise in quality, in budget. Flint and Silver by default are still down on their luck, but as Silver pointed out last episode, there's always a way, which just leads to some great scenes between them. Eleanor having a tough time keeping Vane in check, but by the episode's end, she learns that him and Max are the last of her worries. Ned Lowe is here, and he's the type of pirate they warned you about. Jack feeling the fallout from last episode's events well and truly this episode, his face especially. While Anne is distracted due to her obvious lust for Max. Max takes the gamble and it pays off. Very strong first episode, as I say. I'm going to go with a really strong 8.7 rating, shooting it right to second place after last season's finale. Okay, MVP, right, yeah, no faffing. Ned Lowe gets a strong introduction, but come on, this is Flint's all day. Sure, Silver was by his side and the betrayal bluff was good, but Flint came in clutch with the idea, the stealth kills, instructing Silver during the fight, tied in of course with the great flashbacks where we learn a lot about his past. Yeah, it's easy, it's obvious, Captain James Flint is finally off the mark and has Season 2's first MVP of the episode award. Okay, best scene and quote, right, yeah, God, so many good scenes and so many good quotes. For scene, I love the brothel stuff, you know, all that sort of stuff, and Max and Anne's first kiss. But yeah, come on, it has to be the Flint and Silver fight scene. From where they're bound to the chair and it looks like John's going to do a runner. And then well, what the fuck did you think was going to happen? And then right to where they're crouched behind the table and the Rulers crew comes and bails them out. Then after a hard battle, Flint looking back at the beach, watching his treasure disappear. Amazing scenes. Quote-wise, quite a few funnies this episode. I will fucking kill you, shut up. While Jack's trying to shit in peace. The already mentioned, you mean I actually have to fight him? And then, well, what the fuck did you think was going to happen? You know, that one. Of course, you know, the fucking warship is great as well. But yeah, ultimately, I'm going to go with a bit of a deeper one. I just love Miranda, kind of bigging up her husband, but ultimately just putting something in McGraw's head and describing the Flint, you know, we're now getting to really know. Great men aren't made great by politics. They aren't made great by prudence or propriety. They are made great by one thing and one thing only, the relentless pursuit of a better world. The great men don't give up the pursuit, they don't know how, and that is what makes them invincible. And yeah, that is episode 1 of season 2, done and dusted, guys. So yeah, I will see you very soon for episode 2. Alright everyone, thank you for watching, take care, and I will catch you on the flip side. Peace out, bye.